Welcome back to Worth Effort Woodworking and the fourth video in our Teacher's Notes series that corresponds with the prerequisite courses. And this one we were talking about glues. And this really is an example of the difference between online educational material like this animated textbook that I am and actually teaching to a small group or a class or something like that. Because I would have done it totally different. The only thing I could do is talk about the different products, because there's nothing more boring than watching paint dry other than watching glue dry, because you can't even see it because it's inside the joint. So the best thing I would think to do is, grab a couple bottles. These aren't that much money. I mean, I think the most expensive one is this polyurethane, and it was $5. Most of these were a little over, right around $3, and that was $1. I think that was $3. The bigger ones were $5. But if you're doing a craft class or something like that, you're going to use all this stuff up. So it's not going to be wasted money if you're doing an experiment. And then get a box of popsicle sticks. Let the students figure out the different properties of the glues. Now you might have to guide them, hey, why don't you glue these 2 popsicle sticks with no pressure whatsoever. Just put a dollop of glue on there and let them sit right there. And let's see how they go together. Next one, maybe let's put it in a clamp. Here's a paper clip. You can glue it together and put the paper clip over it, and now kind of squeeze it together. How about this one? After it dries, let's squirt it with water, see which ones come apart and which ones don't. Let's take an iron, put it over it, heat them up, let's see what happens. You can do this as a scientific experiment so that the students can see the results and draw their own conclusion. And at the end of the little experiment, y'all can all look at the bottles. Hey, this stuff was it. Yeah, it did that, or it didn't do that one, and maybe explain why. I mean, it's a great practice of the process of the scientific method. Other things you can do, you can actually bring in history, science, biology, that kind of stuff. I know there are recipes where you can make versions of PVA glue in your kitchen. You can make hide glue with, an old dog rawhide toy. Just boil it down, boil off the water, let it cool, harden, crystallize. There's your glue. You can bring in history. I mean, the study of the printing press goes along with the development of certain types of hide glue. They came up with rabbit glue using rabbit skins because it was softer, a little bit more flexible. So that the book bindings, that binding in the middle, it could move a little bit. And that's actually relevant to today because Google is archiving a lot of old books, and what they're finding is it's very easy to disassemble very old books, but books that were made in the modern day age with modern day printing presses where we use different glues, different adhesives. Those don't come apart as much, and the books are literally falling apart as they're trying to scan them. Where the vintage books, they can heat that up, remove the pages, put them all back together, reheat it, and rebind it. It's strange but they were doing better work in the 1600s than we were doing in the late 1900s. And that is an application of people developing certain glues with certain properties that serve their needs at the time, even way back in the 1600s. If you like studying warfare or something like that, there is something to that old, the Trojans, I'm getting it wrong. That 300 movie that came out where they actually used human corpses to bind up a wall, where there is something to that, in that they made adhesives out of some of their enemies. And if you go back to the Greek ages and Roman age, Rome was riddled with different adhesives. I mean, they built some of the best concrete out there, some of the best mortar, adhesive for tiles, that kind of stuff. And we lost all that knowledge in the Dark Ages. We only started getting it back in the Renaissance age when we started needing adhesive. So there's a lot of different academia that you can bring into, a few lessons on glues. Maybe break up a lesson over a few days, little 15-20 minute modules of experimentation, exploration of history, that kind of stuff. It really is quite different having the student right in front of you where you can feed off of them, feedback them, and draw the information out of them. And that's what I would do if I was teaching this kind of stuff with a classroom. And I hope you will too. I hope, my wish is that you watched the video only to gather the information so that you could present it in your own way to students or other fellow woodworkers. Well, I hope this made some sense to you. See you next time.